What if I told you there's a shockwave coming for the Western Conference and the epicenter is San Francisco? What if I told you the one kind of speed the Warriors haven't had since the dynasty's freshest years, the kind that splits a defense like lightning and turns a dead possession into a roar might be walking straight into Chase Center? And what if I told you the conversation you thought was impossible yesterday has already started changing the way rivals are sleeping tonight? Before you think you've got this figured out, ask yourself a harder question. What happens when the most sophisticated off-ball system in modern basketball suddenly adds a downhill engine that lives in the paint, breathes in transition, and forces help defenders to make a choice they hate on every single possession? Think about Steph standing 2 steps beyond the line, gravity bending the court like a black hole. Think about Draymond quarterbacking the backline, talking, baiting, flipping the chessboard. Think about Kuminga flying off the wing like a jet taking off. Now imagine a point guard who can go from 0 to top gear in one stride, collapse all that space, and still kick to a shooter without losing his balance or his nerve. Imagine defenses deciding whether to chase the comet or guard the sun. Here's what we're unpacking today without spoiling the headline yet. Why the Warriors' identity is built for a second life if they inject elite rim pressure. How timeline math actually supports a bold play. What the on-court ecosystem looks like when you splice downhill creation into a motion offense. What it would ask of Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and the rest of the room. And which trade-offs a front office must stomach if it wants to win rock fights in May. We'll talk fit, risk, culture, the psychology of pace, the realities of usage, and the one clause that changes your cap sheet and your future at the same time. You're watching Warriors News Fan Report. If this is the kind of deep, passionate breakdown you live for, jump in now, subscribe, drop a like, hit the bell, and join the conversation that takes over Dub Nation after every rumor, every game, every late-night twist. This is where we don't just react. We read the floor together. Let's start with the truth that's been staring at us since the league got bigger. Stronger, longer, late series basketball punishes teams that can't put 2 feet in the paint on demand. The Warriors have thrived for a decade by making the three feel like a layup screening geometry. Split actions, misdirection, second side cuts. But the last few postseasons have offered the same riddle. When the jumper goes cold for 6 minutes and the game becomes a trench battle, who manufactures a high percentage look without the whole machine having to hum? Curry still bends the world with movement. Draymond still sees the future 2 beats early. Kuminga is becoming the mismatch you can't ignore. Yet the cleanest counter to switching, length, and top lock defense is the guy who treats the first line of resistance like a rumor. That's why a certain idea keeps returning, louder each time. Because there's a version of Golden State, Basketball, that adds a downhill piston and suddenly reopens the dynasty's playbook with brand new ink. Picture the early offense. Morant, yes, that Morant, pushing with a head of steam. Defenders sprinting to the nail to wall off the drive. Curry fanning out to a deep wing. Kuminga streaking to the rim. Podziemski ghosting to the slot. Draymond trailing like a second point guard. If the help comes early, it's a pitch to Steph or a hit ahead to JK. If the help is late, it's a layup or a foul. If the help is perfect good luck, Draymond's already drawing the charge circle into a passing map you can't cover with 5 bodies. Zoom in further. Half court, 12 on the clock. Dribble handoff into an empty corner pick and roll, refusing the screen. Draymond short rolling into 4-on-3 heaven while Steph relocates. And the weak side has to choose between tagging the roller or honoring the shooter you can't leave. Or flip it. Spain action with Steph screening up to Morant's defender. 2 defenders panic switch, and someone is open by rule. The Warriors have always been a team that controls tempo with intelligence. Adding a driver like this lets them control mood with four-stop culture matters as much as diagrams. The Warriors didn't build what they built by renting talent. They built it by demanding buy-in. Any superstar-level guard walking in has to speak the language move when the ball moves. Cut to create someone else's shot. Defend with purpose. talk on the backside. Respect that Curry's superpower isn't just scoring, but warping the geometry for everyone. The right player changes how teams guard Golden State without changing who Golden State is. The wrong player turns a symphony into a solo. The entire premise here lives on finding the version of Morant who thrives in a structure, not fights at dot. Now the clock has run out on suspense. Here's the headline you came for. The Warriors are prepared to bring Morant to San Francisco on a 4-year framework. That's the news at the center of the room. The scenario that feels like science fiction until you measure how it fits the Warriors' thesis for a second window. 4 years. Not a Band-Aid, not a rental. A commitment that says, this isn't a cameo, this is the next chapter. What does that mean in the real world, fact or speculation? Here's the sober read. The 4 years with Golden State concept is the structure being discussed in scenarios that marry basketball sense with cap. Logic thinks sign and trade mechanics, or repaper deal that synchronizes with the Warriors, core timeline and CBA realities. The appetite is genuine. The Warriors have always chased premium IQ and competitive fire, and Morant offers both along with a gear this roster doesn't have. The uncertainty is also genuine. Availability, accountability, the cost and assets, and the willingness to embrace a system where off-ball discipline is non-negotiable. So treat the headline as a live possibility that reflects serious interest and hard conversations, not a confetti drop. It's not official. It's not a press conference. It's the kind of smoke that exists when a front office believes a player could rewire its ceiling, and the players can't believe the fit could amplify everything. Let's talk basketball fit like adults, because that's where the entire bet lives. On offense, Morant is the rim pressure engine the Warriors haven't had in their prime years. He bends the first defender, flattens drop coverage, and eliminates stay home as a defensive philosophy. Put him in early drag screens with Draymond, and you get the most dangerous decision tree in the West. Tag the roller, and it's a kick to a nuclear shooter. Stay glued to Steph, and it's a layup or a lob. Switch casually, and Ye's first step makes you regret it. Golden State's split cuts become deadlier because the help is already compromised by the threat of a drive. Even when the burst doesn't finish the action, it advances the ball to second-side advantages that this system weaponizes. On defense, the question is usage and structure. The Warriors win when their point of attack is organized and their backline is loud. A locked-in Morant can be a pest with quick hands, a back-tap threat, a transition terror. The scheme asks him to tag and recover, to absorb contact without fouling, to call out the screen early so Draymond can spin the coverage. With Gary Payton 2-style health availability, that's the dream, not the expectation. Golden State toggles between switch, show and recover, and zone disguises that turn possessions into puzzles. The baseline is effort and trust. The ceiling is havoc. The rotation math is clean. If the buy-in is real, starters live in combinations that keep 2 playmakers on the floor at all times. Curry Morant to open. Staggered minutes where Morant runs the second unit with shooters and a vertical threat. Reunions late in halves for finishing lineups that slice your favorite scheme into concessions. Kuminga benefits most. His cuts become louder, his runouts easier, his mismatches juicier. Podziemski thrives as a connector, slipping into pockets Morant creates and feeding the lane as a secondary passer. Draymond becomes even more of a short-roll surgeon, and the bench identity stops lurching because there's always a downhill creator on the court. There are risks, and pretending otherwise insults the badge. Morant's availability has been a moving target. The Warriors' culture can absorb ego. It cannot absorb apathy. The 4-year shape puts a stake in the ground. If you sign this, you're signing up for a standard film work, conditioning, defense on a Tuesday in January, and discipline on a Friday in May. The medical staff gets a new puzzle. The leadership group adds a new voice, and the coaching staff earns its money synchronizing 2 heliocentric engines without dimming either. The bet only pays if the habits match the highlights. There's also the cost to get here. The league doesn't hand out all NBA talent for cap filler. You pay young players picks, maybe a beloved rotation piece. The front office has to be able to tell the room, we didn't just get flash, we got wins in ugly moments. If the price deletes too much shooting or too much switchable length, you can win the headline and lose the spring. That's why the framework talks matter more than the rumor tweets. Process over panic. Ceiling over sizzle. Curry's usage is the hinge. He doesn't need the ball to dominate a possession. His gravity travels. But his genius also lives in pocket passes and late clock magic. The Morant version that makes sense respects that. He pushes, he collapses, he kicks, and then he screens for Steph as the defense scrambles, turning the chessboard upside down. In the minutes where Ye leads solo, Curry's legs stay fresher, his fourth quarter lift returns, and the late game shot diet improves. Conversely, Morant gets the cleanest driving lanes of his life, because the guy 30 feet away is the scariest shooter alive, and the guy at the free throw line is the smartest 4-on-3 playmaker of the era. The psychology is maybe the most interesting subplot. The dynasty has always married joy and edge laughter in warm-ups, sharp eyes in the mud. Morant's game is joy with a flamethrower. The edge is the part Golden State will insist on curating. No shortcuts, no my-turn possessions, no days off from details. If he steps into that with humility and ambition, the locker room will meet him with respect and accountability. If he tries to live outside of it, the fit unravels. That's not a Morant-only truth. That's the Warriors' truth for anyone who wants to share a huddle with 30 and 2-3. What about crunch time? Imagine the closing five: Curry, Morant, Kuminga, Draymond, and the hottest hand between a shooter or a big, depending on the matchup. You can invert the floor Steph screening for Ye to force a switch. You're rejecting and getting downhill, Draymond roaming the dunker spot as the smartest outlet alive. Or you can run Curry off two screens into a handoff while Morant hides in the weak side slot, then burst backdoor the second his defender turns his head. There's a reason coaches hate guarding multiple initiators who love chaos. One mistake becomes two passes and your season feels like it's wobbling. Let's be exact about where the line between confirmed and conjecture lives. Confirmed, the Warriors have a structural need that a downhill star would solve. Confirmed, a 4-year horizon aligns with maximizing the back end of Curry's prime, the ascent of Kuminga, and the organization's desire to skip rebuild and go straight to retool. Conjecture, the paperwork is done. The signatures are in. The jerseys are at the printer. They are not. The right way to hold this story is excitement with adult skepticism. Understand why it makes sense. Acknowledge what it will cost. And remember, no deal is real until the team posts a welcome graphic. If you're asking me whether this is worth it, here's my personal take. No hedging. I mean, if the 4-year structure comes with guardrails that honor the standard and the price doesn't, gut the shooting that makes this machine sing. Give me your Morant in a system that rewards effort every possession, with Curry's gravity, Draymond's brain, and Kuminga's runway. Give me the risk that comes with chasing greatness rather than the comfort that settles for nostalgia. 4 years says you're not renting adrenaline. You're choosing an identity. If both sides mean it, the Warriors don't just get faster. They get scarier when the game slows down. And that's how banners are born.